They thought nothing could beat their beloved Fanta, the pride of wartime Germany. But when a group of captured German soldiers took their first sip of an American Coca-Cola in a Texas POW camp, it wasn't just a taste that shocked them. It was the moment they realized the world was far bigger and freer than they'd ever been told. In the final months of World War II, thousands of German prisoners of war were shipped across the Atlantic to camps scattered across the United States. They had been soldiers of the Reich, hardened by years of battle and indoctrinated with pride in their homeland. Among the things they carried with them besides memories of war was a peculiar fondness for a bright orange drink called Fanta. Back in Germany, Fanta had been more than just a beverage. It was a small piece of joy in a world consumed by war. The German Coca-Cola plant, cut off from the US during wartime trade restrictions, had created it out of whatever ingredients they could find: apple fibers, whey, and leftover fruit peels. Despite its humble beginnings, it became a symbol of ingenuity and resilience. For the young German soldiers, Fanta was a taste of home, sweet and comforting in an otherwise bitter time. When these soldiers were captured and sent to the US, many of them found themselves in small towns surrounded by American soldiers, farmers, and volunteers. They were treated better than they had expected, fed regularly, allowed to write letters, even permitted to work on local farms. But one day, something as simple as a drink would shake their world in a way they never imagined. It happened in the summer of 1945, in a prisoner camp in Texas. The sun burned hot across the dusty fields, and a group of German POWs was unloading supplies under guard. One of the guards, a young American named Private Miller, watched them sweat under the sun. Feeling a rare sense of sympathy, he reached into his bag and pulled out a glass bottle, cold, dark, and glistening with condensation. He walked over, cracked the cap open with a hiss, and handed it to one of the Germans. The German hesitated, squinting at the label. Coca-Cola. He knew the name. It was the company that had made Fanta. He looked at Miller suspiciously, but the soldier just grinned. "Try it," Miller said. The German lifted the bottle to his lips, and the first sip changed everything. The rich, fizzy sweetness burst across his tongue, stronger, bolder, deeper than the watery orange drink he'd known. His eyes widened, and the others gathered around, asking for a taste. Soon, Miller was laughing, handing out bottles from a crate, and the POWs were passing them around like treasure. That night, word spread across the camp. The Americans had a version of Fanta's parent drink, something they called Coke. Some POWs dismissed it at first, saying nothing could beat the German Fanta, but curiosity got the better of them. When more bottles were shared a few days later, every man wanted one. For the first time in years, these men who had fought for Hitler's vision of supremacy sat quietly together, marveling at a drink that had no ideology, no propaganda, no war attached to it. It was simply joy in a bottle. One prisoner, a young man named Franz, wrote in his diary that night, "They told us we were the best in the world, that Germany made everything better. But today, I tasted something that made me realize how small that world really was. If a drink can surprise me this much, what else have I been blind to?" Weeks passed, and the POWs began to work more closely with local farmers. Some of them even earned trust enough to walk freely in the nearby town under supervision. When Coca-Cola trucks rumbled down Main Street, the men would pause and stare, smiling faintly. They began to associate America not with the enemy they were taught to hate, but with this strange, open, confident world that could make something as simple as a soda feel like hope. After the war ended, many of the German prisoners were sent home. Before boarding the ships, a few Americans handed them bottles of Coca-Cola for the journey. Some tucked the bottles into their duffel bags like keepsakes. When they returned to a broken Germany, cities in ruins, people hungry and lost, they told stories not just of the battles they fought, but of something that had changed their view of the enemy. Years later, when Coca-Cola reopened its operations in post-war Germany, it wasn't just a business move. It was a symbol. Many who had once been POWs stood in line to buy a drink that reminded them not of defeat, but of awakening. Fanta returned too, now under Coca-Cola's global reach, but even those who had once sworn it was unbeatable quietly admitted that nothing compared to the taste of that first American Coke under the Texas sun. What began as a simple moment of generosity in a prisoner camp became, for many, the first real taste of peace.